So last night I made the mistake of calling my mom at what I believed was 9:30 her time. For some reason I believed that 9:30 was 12:30 in our time because she just went to a new job and now she's in Texas. I forgot that Texas isn't 3 hours away. Texas is only 1 hour away. So I ended up calling my mom at 11:30 and she was already dead asleep, tired. And I woke her up because my mouse died last night. And I found out quickly that the reason why it died was its battery was dead, which wasn't anticipating that ever to happen because it never had before. So I guess I got a lot of battery life out of my mouse, so that's pretty cool. But after about 15 to 20 minutes of searching for where the battery was, which I finally found it, hit the button on the back and boom, it just popped right open. So I tried to pry it open and that didn't work. So I ended up pushing the button and boom, it just popped right open. Like, it was so easy. Like, I should have really known that was how you do it. But apparently I didn't, and that was a problem. So, once again, Mom, if you're watching this video, I'm sorry for calling you at 11:30 at night and waking you up. And I still need French fries. Now, it's funny to me, sorry. But you already know that. So, it is Sunday, and we're going to talk a couple things right now before we get into AJ's weekend movie reviews. Now, the first thing I want to mention is the WGAs tonight. Actually, we won't find out who won tonight over here. The 3 hours do come into play here until about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And I got work early in the morning thanks to my awesome schedule this week. So I won't be able to check those out. I probably will anyway. Set an alarm for myself in the morning just so I can make it. But I do want to talk WGA. And we're going to talk about my official 100% not changing predictions for WGA. We're starting with original screenplay. And pretty much the win should be Zero Dark 30. But there's a lot of heat on the movie itself right now. So I'm not sure if they're going to give it to it. You've got 4 other contenders. You got Looper, which won a lot, and I do mean a lot, of screenplay awards before the televised award show started. And AJ did make the comment that you couldn't put both Django and Looper in the same category at the Oscars, obviously, so they didn't nominate Looper. And this was pretty much Looper's biggest nomination, which is the WGA. Looper's not winning, it's sorry. It's a sad state of affairs. Excellent movie, but it's not going to win. Flight, I don't know why the movie got nominated, and it shouldn't have been. There should have been all sorts of things. There's a lot of things, like Django, that were not eligible for this WGA nomination, so where that's out. The Master, pretty much dead in the water right now, which is sad because I really like The Master. So it's down to basically Moonrise Kingdom and Zero Dark 30. You have the movie that's nominated for Best Picture versus the movie that should have been nominated for Best Picture. Right now, I would say my official win, is going to be Zero Dark 30. I think my upset is Moonrise Kingdom. And I think your dark horse, strangely enough, would probably be The Master. As weird as it is to say. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but this may be the start of something. It's not going to do anything anywhere else, but I mean, the WGA, it's a prestigious award, and we're going to go with that as my prediction. So, Zero Dark 30 wins, Moonrise Kingdom's my upset, and The Master is my dark horse. So, oh, good God. Next we're gonna go into, I'm gonna save adapted for last because obviously I want to talk about something. We're gonna talk about documentary screenplay for a second. My win all day long, Searching for Sugar Man, and it will win the Oscar. AJ did make the comment to me, and it does kind of make sense that Searching for Sugar Man is actually the gift shop, which won pretty much everywhere and then lost the Oscar. So I hope that doesn't happen this time. I think Searching for Sugar Man is my very deserved win. I think West of Memphis is actually going to be my upset. And I think the dark horse in this is The Invisible War. It did get nominated over The Imposter at the Oscars, and the other 3 really didn't get much accolades as is, like We Are Legion, The Story of the Hacktivist, and May Maxima Culpa, Silence in the House of God, and Central Park 5. really haven't been doing anything, so I'm going to go with Searching for Sugar Man's my win, and West of Memphis is my upset, and my dark horse is The Invisible War, and that's fine. Adapted, dear God, this could go anyway right now. Right now, this is very weird to say. I love Perks. Perks is one of the best movies of the year, without any question. Perks should have went a whole lot further in the award season than it did. And I would have liked to have seen it get to the Oscars. It deserved to get to the Oscars. But it was not to happen. Perks is 5. I hate to say it, but it's 5. Then you got Life of Pi, which may have won in another year, but this is not the year. This is not the script. So you've got 3. You got Lincoln, you got Silver Linings Playbook, and you have Argo. I'm going to continue to say it. Argo's my win. Actually, just winning the Ace Eddie Award last night. So Argo has got some momentum. Now, granted, Silver Linings Playbook also won an Ace Eddie Award last night. So they both got momentum. So here is my bold prediction. And this is going to be really weird to say. Argo is my win. I think Silver Linings Playbook is my upset. And I'm going to go with Lincoln as the dark horse. And nothing about Lincoln says the word dark horse, but it's the WGA. And I don't think that Lincoln is as much of a juggernaut as people think it is. Daniel Day-Lewis is the only person... Let me check my Oscar predictions, which I will give you later. The only thing I have Lincoln winning as of this moment, that's not a dark horse or an upset. The only thing I have Lincoln winning in my official Oscar predictions, which I will give you either Wednesday or Thursday next week, this coming week, because obviously the Oscars are Sunday, which is awesome because I cannot wait, because this award season's finally over, but it's been quite a ride, hasn't it, folks? Lincoln's only winning 1. And you nominate Lincoln as many times as you do, but I'm only giving it 1. So, wrap your head around that. And, of course, Daniel Day-Lewis is my win, but we'll talk about that later. I know I did a video about it yesterday, and I'm going to... Well, Friday. No, not Friday. Thursday. What day was that? Anyway, I did an Elimination Chamber prediction video the other day, and I'm going to change a couple of those predictions. I'm going to look at my 4-down predictions, and I'm going to stick with that. I am saying, as of right now, I see the Monsters of Funk are going to defeat the Rhodes Scholars by pinfall, and no interference in that match. And I think Antonio Cesaro pins The Miz and continues the feud. I don't see interference in that match. I say Caitlyn retains the Divas title over Tamina Snuka, and again, no interference. So we're down to our big matches here. I say the Shield are going to beat the super team of John Cena, Ryback, and Sheamus. And I think Sheamus is going to eat the pin. That's what I think is going to happen. I think that's what should happen. I think the Shield needs to win in order to maintain dominance. Because if they lose, you can't stop Injustice if you keep losing all the time. So the Shield have to win. They have to win tonight. And in about 5 hours, we'll find out. The number 1 contenders to the World Heavyweight Championship, of course I call it the number 1 contender Elimination Chamber, which is true, but I didn't mention that this is for the number 1 contender to the World Heavyweight Championship in the Elimination Chamber. There you go. But before I talk about that, I do want to say that I think that the Shield against the Super Team is going to be in the Chamber. That's a possibility. But I have another idea for the Chamber as well, so maybe we'll go with that. So that's a possibility for the Chamber. I say you're winning this match. I'm going to go with Jack Swagger. The reason why I'm going with Swagger is because it writes itself perfectly. You have Alberto Del Rio retain the World Heavyweight Championship early on in the night and defeat the Big Show decisively. So Big Show can move on. He can go on to bigger and better things. You put him in there with Ryback. You want to do Ryback and Big Show at Mania. You want to do Ryback and Mark Henry at Mania. You want to do Big Show. Anyway you want to do, anything you want to do with the Big Show, he needs to get away from ADR, and it needs to happen now. So this is a decisive win where ADR gets the final victory. And I know a lot of people have been calling the knockout punch and then Ziggler cashes in. No, that's not what I see happening tonight. I say Del Rio wins decisively, which I mentioned that. And then I see Jack Swagger winning the Elimination Chamber. The final guy will still be Randy Orton. I say Hell No eliminate each other. So that pretty much writes itself, though. I say that Mark Henry ends up getting eliminated by an RKO. And I'm going to say Jericho ends up going to eliminate Randy Orton. Or going to eliminate Jack Swagger in this case. And he's about ready to take Swagger out. And then Orton hits the RKO and pins Jericho. I say Swagger ends up hitting the Swagger Bomb on Orton and gets the pin. And I say Jack Swagger wins because then you've got Jack Swagger against Alberto Del Rio for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania. And I think that's the direction you go. And you can still do Dolph Ziggler versus Chris Jericho on the undercard of Mania. And that works really well for me. And I think it would work really well for me. You get the tag team titles off Hell No on a Raw somewhere before WrestleMania, or you can have them defend against the Shield at WrestleMania. That'll work too. But I think either way, Daniel Bryan and Kane are pretty much days numbered as a tag team. And that's fine, because I want to see Daniel Bryan move on. Now, I already mentioned the World Heavyweight Championship. I'm going to get a lot of crap here, and I did last time. At the Royal Rumble, when I called Punk winning, this was pretty much what I wanted to happen in the Rumble, and I think it's going to happen in Elimination Chamber. There's a lot of directions you can go. There's safe directions you can go. Now, a lot of people have been saying that maybe it wasn't Vince on the phone. That's a possibility. I know Ashley said that. It would say maybe it wasn't Vincent on the phone. Maybe you do Punk winning in nefarious means, and then you have Vince McMahon's... Well, I guess in this case it wouldn't be Vince McMahon, but it'd have to be Vicky Guerrero coming out and in Vince's place restarting the match by dropping the chamber. But the problem is you really can't do a chamber match with two guys, so that really wouldn't work. But I say Punk wins. I say Punk wins via pinfall. And if you want to get the belt off of him and put the belt back on The Rock for Mania, then go ahead. You can have it happen on a Raw. Can you imagine the ratings for a Monday Night Raw with The Rock against CM Punk for the WWE Championship when you know The Rock's going to get the belt back? That's going to be huge. And that'd be a reason to tune in. And a great reason to get a great rating on Raw. And of course it's all about ratings now. It's about pay-per-view buy rates, of course. But it's also all about ratings. So, I think Punk wins. Unless The Undertaker is able to go at Mania. And if you do that, then I say you have somehow... Maybe Punk hears the gong and he's distracted and The Rock beats him. And then of course we have Rock and Taker not working together, but Taker wanting to spook Punk for whatever reason. I don't know how that works really, because... Then you have The Undertaker made the challenge, and that makes no sense whatsoever, so don't know why you would go that way. And the only thing you could really do is have Punk want to end the streak just because he wants to go out on top, maybe? I don't know. There's so many ways you can go with this. I'm still not believing for sure Taker's not good for Mania or is good for Mania, it just depends. I still think the tag match with Triple H against Brock and Punk could work. I still think Punk as a babyface could work after Lesnar and Heyman turn on him after this match. I mean, that's possible. I mean, there's a lot of directions you could go, but my concrete prediction for tonight is going to be an unpopular one with CM Punk regaining the WWE Championship by the time the night's over. Whether you get the belt back on The Rock for Mania and we still do Rock and Cena, or if we do the triple threat match, either way, I say Punk wins tonight. And I think it works. So, those are my predictions for the WGA and the Elimination Chamber. And, of course, it is Sunday, and wow, Sunday also means it is now time for AJ's Weekend Movie Reviews. And we saw 4 this week, and usually I would set up, I said previously I was going to break these up into one video. I mean, multiple videos. But I think I'm going to just put them in one. Don't know exactly how the description title is going to go, but we'll figure that out when we get there. So, we're going to start with the first movie of the day, which was Safe Haven. As usual, these are AJ's opinions. I may agree with him, I may disagree with him, but this is word for word verbatim exactly what AJ sent me to put on this video. And these are AJ's opinions, and I'm about to read them to you. So, we're going to start off with Safe Haven. One can't quite figure out the exact time and place director Lasse Hallström lost his way. But it's hard to ignore the fact that the director that brought us Oscar favorites such as The Cider House Rules and Chocolat, as well as the unforgettable What's Eating Gilbert Grape, has now brought us not one, but two adaptations of Nicholas Sparks' cheesy romance novels. And he's also responsible for 2010's Dear John. Now, the story begins when a mysterious girl, Julianne Hough, is dragged by a cop, David Lyons. Well, being tracked by a cop, David Lyons, as she attempts to escape town on a bus. Now, we have no idea who she is or what she did, and we figure out quickly that the movie will keep this information from us until it is convenient later. Now, once she ends up in North Carolina, she changes her name to Katie, gets a job, and meets widowed Alex, Josh Duhamel, who falls for her despite the fact that she acts like a total witch. Now, of course, sooner or later they will fall in love until there's a conflict they have to overcome, but all will be well. Now, I think a big problem this movie has from the start is Hough. I mean, she's gorgeous and very easy to look at, but acting really isn't her thing. I do give her the benefit of the doubt, because you can tell she's really trying, but I couldn't bring myself to sympathize with her or want anything better for her character, which is on the actress to convey to the audience. Now, the role was originally going to be played by Keira Knightley before she had to drop out. I'm not in any way a Knightley fan, but I would have been very interested to see how she would have played it. I can easily imagine she'd have been the better choice. However, more power to Knightley, you can't fault an Oscar-nominated actress for dropping out of a Nicholas Sparks movie, right? But let's talk about Cobie Smulders. Yeah, you might remember her as the woman in the Avengers that, stood around the control room, looked important even though she didn't really do anything. Or, that really popular television show she's on. I've never watched How I Met Your Mother, but God almighty, if she's the star of it, I ain't starting now. She plays Katie's friend, who lives out in the middle of the woods and pops up occasionally. Almost as if she's gonna turn out like Jennifer Jason Leigh in Single White Female. I'm sure Hough was very grateful they share so many scenes together, as Hough comes out of those looking like Meryl Streep. Like Sparks' adaptations, this one isn't shy about packing on the cliches. Take, for instance, the biggest offense in this department. Cliché number one for any romance movie, and I mean any romance movie. At some point, Alex will learn that Katie is not really who she says she is, but when will they find out? I just can't seem to figure it out. Oh wait, I remember now. They haven't had sex yet. So when you're on the edge of your seat, just remind yourself, it's okay, he won't find out here. They haven't had sex yet. Well, after many repetitive scenes of them falling in love, what do? They finally have sex. And the very next day, he finds a wanted poster with her picture and real name on it. It never fails. I'd also like to point out that we have an attractive actress that can't actually act, so let's use her for eye candy cliché. Let's take the scene where Alex and his kids invite Katie to the beach. Well, they hang out on the beach for the whole day, and then right in the middle of this whole montage, Hough magically appears in a red bikini looking straight out of a photo shoot, and splashes around smiling. Then, just mere seconds later, she's chilling out on the sand with Josh Duhamel back in her normal clothes. No sign this bikini ever existed. I will give this movie some credit where credit is due. If there is a plot twist or two that are very well laid out and take the story in an interesting direction that it needs to go. The thing that's going to mess with the audience's head is the bizarre way this movie attempts to combine the light, cheesy romance and fun with this rather dark thriller lurking underneath it. Now, to be totally honest, the way the thriller unravels, this may have been a decent movie if they had stuck to that plot. Going back and forth between the two, borderline disorienting. Now, this movie's hero, however, is Josh Duhamel. This movie could have quickly collapsed into unbearable territory, but luckily Duhamel has plenty of charm and likability that you really want him and his children, well, his sweet little girl anyway, the other is kind of a tool, to be happy. He gives you someone to root for and care about, as well as turning in a pretty good performance. Unfortunately, it isn't really enough to bring the movie to the level of being called decent. The bad still marginally outweighs the good, and it doesn't help that once they manage to finally catch you off guard and surprise you, you can still pretty much see everything from a mile away. Isn't it weird that to this day, the only decent movie to come from a Nicholas Sparks book was made by that guy who made Alpha Dog? Die Hard 5. Yep. If you're an avid fan of the Die Hard franchise, you will know that walking into one, you are getting yourself knee-deep in the relentless badassery and well-crafted action. And this movie sure knows how to start with a bang. We begin on a black screen. You can hear gunfire in the distance. A dooming score building louder and louder as the sound of carnage seems to be raising. The whole room intensifying, just watching this black screen, and then BOOM! A lone reporter quietly giving us piece of the plot on BBC World News. Woohoo! Kick-ass! Okay, all kidding aside, it's more like a Die Hard movie to hold the action off until it's needed. Well, it's about half an hour in when the first person's killed in the original Die Hard. Now, having said that, though, I don't think this is the right movie to continue the franchise with. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's the Die Hard equivalent of Rocky V or Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, but John McClane deserves a little better. Making him play second fiddle to an actor no one knows if they didn't see Jack Reacher was a bad start. In a scene that reeks of superimposing the heads of Willis and Mary Elizabeth Winstead on the bodies of Liam Neeson and Maggie Grace, McClane's daughter Lucy drops him off at the airport where he's going to Russia to find his son Jack, Jai Courtney, who has gotten himself into some trouble. They work together to stop a terrorist and his daughter who are trying to get their hands on a file that has incriminating evidence against him. Now, it is kind of a twist that they're the villains, but I'm giving you the better judgment by just saying it, seeing how this twist is about as surprising as getting wet when you step out into the rain. To be fair, I'll start off talking about this movie as if it's not a Die Hard movie. The first chase sequence, pretty balls to the wall. They're chased throughout the streets of Moscow by a villain's armored truck, plowing down the street with the strength of a bulldozer. However, the main problem is the character of Jack. He's incredibly annoying, and despite striving to be a badass, he's very whiny. It also gets increasingly irritating the way he calls his dad John every 5 seconds. Yeah, we get it. You don't see him as a father figure, despite the fact he's your dad, although the first time you saw him, the first thing you said was, "Dad!" Another problem is the very weak villain. Before the real character in Charlie's Angels, by way of Michael Fassbender, wow, long day. Before the real villains are revealed, we get Alec, which is Rasha Buckvick, who appears to be Sam Rockwell's Charlie's Angels character by way of Michael Fassbender. He's not a terrible villain. Seeing as if he's trying to be over the top, and has a very memorable villainous line of, "You have taken the John McClane of the past." God, wow, I'm just reading this wrong. Okay, we're going to go back. Since I don't edit, we're going to go back. Another problem is the weak villain. Before the real villains are revealed, we get Alec, Rasha Buckvick, who appears to be Sam Rockwell's character in Charlie's Angels by way of Michael Fassbender. He's not a terrible villain, seeing how he's trying to be over the top and has a memorable villainous line in, "You know what I hate about Americans? Everything." But he feels like someone it would have taken the John McClane of the past just seconds to kill. I also give it credit for being particularly fast-paced. I mean, it's never boring. The explosive climax is pretty thrilling. Really, the thing that it should have been a memorable slam-bang action thriller, but it all felt pretty minor. Now, for all the reasons I suggest fans not to try to think of it as a Die Hard movie, my first complaint is just a pet peeve regarding this. Bruce, if you're gonna be John McClane, Can ya grow your hair out, or at least get a hairpiece? Since 2005, his bald head has become Bruce Willis' MO. Trouble is, John McClane is an iconic character, and John McClane is not bald. Bruce Willis is bald, and though it seems like a minuscule thing to complain about, you can't argue this is one reason these past two Die Hard movies aren't as easy to distinguish as the first three. For all we know now, that was John McClane in Hostage, Red, Unbreakable, Tears of the Sun, The Expendables, and Looper. Well, I suppose I could take the blame off the hair and place it on Willis as an actor, but that would be like complaining Jason Statham wasn't different enough between The Transporter and Crank, and there's other things to worry about. Now that's something that's been great about how all the Die Hard movies, they're villains. Although this sounds like another futile complaint, something this one really lacks is a big-name villain. They've had actors with the gravitas to play characters that are only genuinely threatening. Something more than stock villains left over from 90s movies. Alan Rickman, Franco Nero, Jeremy Irons, Timothy Olyphant. These are actors people remember and make a strong impact. Koch is someone I hadn't even heard of before this movie, and I don't expect to hear from again. There was also no mention of Holly or the name Gennaro, which I found odd given this is the first movie to feature both McClane children since the first one. And as I feared, the famous catchphrase, kinda wasted, having him say it at a very awkward time way too early. Even though one of my compliments was the fast pacing. I'll have to say this movie is too short to really take off or bring something more. The thing about the other movies, this one is 97 minutes, all the others past 2 hours. Is even all the villains had rather simple motives. There was a great wit and brains to how the plots unraveled, and all the characters' actions were for a reason. And Courtney wasn't as bad as Werner Herzog's ruthless henchman in Jack Reacher, but here there is a way too much of him, and too little spotlight on Willis. And Courtney is clearly not prepared for that kind of screen time, lacking presence and personality. Now, it's still decent entertainment for a movie of its genre, and with the name of the character attached, you do expect more than you get, but this is me warning you now. Expect less, and better luck next time adding to the franchise. Beautiful Creatures. Alright. While Beautiful Creatures may not be the best movie to come out this month, I would certainly strongly consider it a how-to in adapting a book to the screen, especially in this young adult fiction phase. Le Gravenese takes the main story and events of the book, which I read about half of, and gives it good, snappy dialogue that sounds much more made for a movie than out of a book aimed at young teens. The story of Ethan Waite, which is Einreich. He's lived in the small, boring town of Gatlin all of his life, just as all his family members before him did. Now lately, he's been having weird dreams of a girl that may be the love of his life, but he can never see her face. When the mysterious Lena Duquesne, wow, long day. When this mysterious Lena Duquesne shows up at school, he is convinced she is literally the girl of his dreams. Lena, however, is not welcomed with open arms by the town, seeing as she lives with her uncle, the town shut-in, Macon Ravenwood, which is Jeremy Irons, who everyone believes is a dangerous Satanist. Now, one of the things that really helps this movie is its extremely likable main character, played very well by Ehrenreich. I'd love to see this guy in more movies, and I was very pleased to see he's turning up in Woody Allen's new movie. He's very funny, saying things such as, "Well, that conversation hit a dead end on a road to nowhere. I must have missed the exit out to fascinating." And he brings a great believability to the character in a role that most newcomers would have probably zombie walked through. Englert, on the other hand, is not so appealing. She's kind of attractive, but really lacks a personality and flair, which begs the question why the lead female roles in this recent teen movies are so hard to cast. I guess you can't always get Oscar-nominated actors such as Jennifer Lawrence for these franchise fantasy movies all the time, but can you at least try to find someone that can be somewhat memorable? Englert isn't a terrible actress by any means, but to be honest, if I were to see her in another movie right now, I probably wouldn't even remember her if I saw her. Now there are some interesting side characters thrown at us, mainly Irons' Ravenwood, who, as Jeremy Irons does best, is perfectly menacing and scary while still managing to charm you into thinking he can't be all bad. He also has a humorous fondness for Google. There is also a very dark and sexy Emmy Rossum as Lena's cousin Ridley, who is a siren, having the power to make men do whatever she wants. I was never really a fan of Rossum, but her performance and fetching appearance make it totally easy to believe a guy would jump off a bridge for her. Emma Thompson gives a fun and lively performance as the town's religious nutjob, who is possessed by the evil witch Seraphine, who has returned to bring havoc. Viola Davis appears as Ethan's nanny, who is also the closest thing he has to a mother, and she didn't really bring anything to the character, coming off more like this was a necessary evil for a paycheck. At least everyone else tried. So if you don't think this is your cup of tea, you might be pleasantly surprised. Sure, it's the kind of stuff made for fans of the Twilight Saga and all that stuff, but this has a surprising amount of humor and wit that could make it enjoyable to anyone. It may have a confusing, convoluted climax, and there are some changes in the book, including the order of scenes. Ethan and Lena can't communicate telepathically, which was a big part of the book, and Lena's number on her hand is in the teens as opposed to the hundreds. I guess for time restraints. All aside, if you want to see a new movie this weekend, this is probably your best bet. And that's okay. Escape from Planet Earth. Okay, parents, you can calm down. After a month of hardcore, R-rated movies filled with enough sex and violence to last an entire year, we have our first animated movie directed at children for this year. And thankfully, I think you and your children will not be disappointed. This is the story of two alien brothers, Scorch, Brendan Fraser, and Gary, Rob Corddry. Scorch is a big shot with a small brain who goes on space and rescue missions, while Gary sits behind the computer as the brains behind the operations. Which, of course, Scorch gets all the credit for. However, it's up to Gary to save the day when Scorch gets his dumbass stranded on Earth, which they'll have to first get past a bumbling general, which is William Shatner, and a corrupt alien, Jessica Alba. Despite the fact a lot of the humor is juvenile slapstick, meant for kids below the age of 6, there are some many hilarious scenes and jokes spread throughout the whole movie. Scorch has a very funny encounter with one of these inflatable arm-flailing tube men outside a 7-Eleven, which, by the way, brought a lot of hope to this movie immediately, seeing how most animated movies wouldn't be able to afford the place being a real 7-Eleven and not some knockoff. There's also a great scene where Gary goes through a crash course on Earth, and what he learns is particularly frightening for him, as it should be to us, when you think about it. When Scorch is captured at the 7-Eleven by men who appear to be part of the sanitation team in Monsters, Inc., Gary takes it upon himself to go to Earth in a spaceship voiced by Ricky Gervais. Gervais's voice work leads to an unfathomable number of laughs. In an alien prison type of place, Gary meets a few new characters, including a Cyclops, voiced by Jane Lynch, an overgrown rat, voiced by Craig Robinson, and an oblivious slug, played by George Lopez. All of these characters are funny in their own way. It's a totally harmless 90-minute animated movie that should keep everyone entertained. And I have to say what you will about Brendan Fraser as an actor, but here he steps it up from being one of those celebrities that does a voice just because the makers wanted a famous name to get attention. Fraser is totally game and goes all out with this character, managing to give him some heart while making him as idiotic as possible. The most confusing thing, however, a very cleverly used, if bizarre, reference to the artist. One reference I'd be surprised if you, let alone your kids, picked up on. So, as I exit out of this email that I was sent from AJ, that is his weekend movie reviews. Next week, we're going to be doing 2 new movies on Friday. There may be 3. I'm doubting it. I mean, the only thing I could see right now is getting Lincoln back, or Life of Pi back, or Gasp, Argo back, because I'm not going to get rid of that movie until it actually does business. But this Friday is Snitch, and what looks to be absolutely hilarious, and for all the wrong reasons, Dark Skies. So if that's the case, AJ's weekend movie reviews for next week will be Snitch, Dark Skies, and he did a review of the sequel to Haunting in Connecticut that he told me is too good to not use. So we're going to use it next week as long as there's not another movie. And if not, we'll get to it eventually because I'm hearing it's really great. AJ has this thing he writes in a notebook, and if there's a lot on it, he really didn't like it or there's a lot to talk about. Apparently there is a whole lot of dialogue on this one, so I'm really interested to see how it works. But that's AJ's Weekend Movie Reviews for this weekend. It is 3:30, so I will plod through the rest of the day, watching That Guy with the Glasses, and listening to various other podcasts. Todd in the Shadows, The Nostalgia Chick, The Nostalgia Critic, just to get through the rest of the day. And then tonight, Elimination Chamber and the Writers Guild Awards. Tomorrow, I work until 8 o'clock, Monday Night Raw, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we will be at B-Dubs, provided everybody is not deathly ill or unable to make it. So, I'm going to get off here. I have to figure out what I'm going to call this video because YouTube does not allow me a very big space for a description of the video. No, the naming of the video. The description of the video is fine, but the naming of the video. So, I'm going to go try to figure that out. And until tomorrow, that's all I got to say about that.